Hello, my fantasy friends. I'm the Raging Redhead Cam Stewart from HotRoster today, and we're only 2 games away, a couple weeks away from the biggest contest of the year, Super Bowl 51. But before we can jump ahead to the big dance, we kind of need to know who's going to be there, and by this Sunday we will, following the NFC and AFC championship games. In the meantime, this weekend's contests do feature some of the game's best, especially at the quarterback position, so I'm here to help you navigate through some difficult decisions on HotRoster. I'm here to help you with the upper deck card. Let's get into it. I think there's no denying it, the Packers' Aaron Rodgers is becoming, if he isn't already, the best quarterback of his era. But the man he'd be taking that torch from might still have something to say, and that would be the man, Tom Brady of the New England Patriots. These two guys could possibly be lining up against one another in an epic Super Bowl 51, but for now, HotRoster has them matched up on their upper deck card with Rodgers as a 3-point favorite. Now, I know in some ways this might be tough to do, but I'm going to take Rodgers in Atlanta, despite the points you get with Brady. Rodgers has been an absolute magician at the position since Week 7. Over the last 13 games, he's averaged 306 passing yards and nearly 3 touchdowns per contest. Plus, the Falcons have allowed opponents to score 26 points per game at home this season, which is aided by the fact opposing quarterbacks tallied 19 touchdown passes in the Georgia Dome. That should all mean huge production for Rodgers. Meanwhile, Brady, I think, will no doubt bounce back from his terrible effort against the Texans, but it just won't be enough to edge A-Rod. Give me the favorite, give me Rodgers in this battle of heavyweights. Speaking of MVP caliber quarterbacks, I think all this talk of Aaron Rodgers' big playability, Tom Brady's legacy, and even Big Ben Roethlisberger's success has made people forget about arguably the best quarterback this season, Matty Ice of the Atlanta Falcons. Luckily, HotRoster is far from forgotten this guy, and they're asking whether Matty Ice will get greater or less than 23 fantasy points. And you know what? I'm all over Ryan getting the over. Last week against a tough Seattle team, Matty Ice completed 26 of 36 passes for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think he's a lock for at least 300 yards passing and 2 scores against the Pack, which in itself is 20 fantasy points. Ryan has tossed 14 touchdowns with no picks over his last 5 starts. This guy's a stud. I know he'll get it done on Sunday. I'm taking the over with the Iceman. The only running back matchup on the upper deck card features the Packers' Ty Montgomery taking on LeGarrette Blount of the Patriots. And I got to say, it's really hard to love Blount in this matchup. Yes, he's in a revenge game against his old buddies from Pittsburgh, but Blount just simply hasn't been getting it done lately. Because Dion Lewis seems to be gaining control of that Patriots backfield. Blount hasn't played more than 29 snaps over his last 5 games, and he's averaging just 2.76 yards per carry over his last 59. That's too much of a concern for me, especially when you consider what Ty Montgomery could do against the Falcons. Atlanta has given up a league-high 109 receptions, 870 yards, and 6 touchdowns receiving to running backs this season. That bodes well for a guy like Montgomery, who's averaging 5 targets per game over his last 4. I think Montgomery gets the volume, finds the end zone, while Blount, he continues to regress. I like Montgomery over Blount in this matchup on HotRoster. Lastly, you guys know me, I'm a sucker for kick-up matchups. Unfortunately, the upper deck card features a doozy between Matt Bryant of the Falcons and Mason Crosby of the Green Bay Packers. And look, we know Crosby's a beast, especially in the postseason. The guy's made good on 23 consecutive field goals in the playoffs, which includes making 2 50-yarders against the Cowboys last week. But don't be fooled by that performance. Crosby had never hit 2 50-yard field goals in any game before last Sunday. He was also 0 for 4 in his career on potential game-tying or go-ahead field goals from 50 yards or more in the 4th quarter. This week, I don't think Crosby is going to be afforded that opportunity, which is why Matt Bryant is my guy this week. He's been more consistent of the 2 kickers all season long, and he's made good on 19 of his last 21 field goals dating back to November. He's also averaged 11 fantasy points per game over that stretch, better than Crosby's 8. That's why I'm sticking with Bryant over Crosby in this matchup. Well, that's it for today, my fantasy football friends. Hope you enjoyed this Sunday's conference championship games in the NFL, and good luck with your picks on HotRoster this week. And for those of you who don't know what HotRoster is, you gotta check it out. Go to HotRoster.com, download the app, give it a try. It's like no other fantasy game that you've ever played. And then for help winning the game, check out HotRoster today with me and my buddy Gary and Thorne every weekday at 4:30 Eastern, only on the Fantasy Sports Network. For HotRoster now, I'm Cam Stewart, and I'll see you on the virtual gridiron.